Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to another discussions video. Now, as you can easily tell based on the title and the thumbnail, today's video we are going to be talking about rewriting FNAF 4. So basically just gonna be like all my other rewrite videos. If you haven't seen those, I'm just gonna kind of go through, we'll do a little bit of recap and rules, just kind of talk about some general stuff. Then we'll go through the main gameplay and all those changes. Then I'll talk about the story, and that will be it for the video. Now, as of recording this intro, I haven't actually, had everything recorded and put together yet, so I don't know how long the video is, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's my shortest rewrite yet, because to be honest, it was a little hard to rewrite this game since it's my favorite FNAF game, and there's so much that I like about it. It was a little difficult to actually, rewrite it, but I think I did a good enough job, and I made some changes that I think will help out the game, at least in my opinion. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. You guys know I don't like to do that. I hate wasting time on intros, so let's just get into this. And before we do, just a couple quick things. Again, opening scene, I want to give a shout out to Luke Pizzania for animating that opening scene. It was meant for a different video, but I used it for this one because I thought it would work well. So thanks for the opening scene. Don't forget to like and subscribe to him and me, and yeah, let's do this. Alright, so for the recap and rules section, for those of you who have seen my other videos, you know that there tends to be very little recapping and very little rules. It just happens to be what this section is called. Now, for recapping FNAF 4, I just want to go over a few things that I liked and a few things that I didn't like from the game, and then we'll kind of just talk about some small general changes to the game that I would make that I didn't really feel like had a good place anywhere else in the video. So we'll just kind of cover those few things, and then we'll move into the rest of the video where I'll talk about night by night gameplay, the story, stuff like that. So to recap FNAF 4, in a way, what did I like from the game? We'll start with that. Well, pretty much like everything. I love FNAF 4, it's my favorite FNAF game, and I liked pretty much everything the game had to offer, which was part of the reason why this was a difficult video to make, because there wasn't a whole lot that I felt I really wanted to change. So that was kind of a difficult thing, but for the most part, I liked everything in the game. Now, there are a couple things that it's not so much that I didn't like, but I don't know how else to word it. So a couple of the things are the fact that there's not really a custom night. Now, I know that's a little bit difficult to do with all of the animatronics, and I'll explain that later because I just happened to add a custom night to my, rewrite. But I think the lack of some level of customization does kind of take away from the game a little bit, at least in my opinion. So having a custom night would be kind of fun and helpful, especially like once you finish the game, because then you can kind of go back and do earlier nights without actually having to restart the game. So I just think having a custom night would be kind of a fun change. Another one is kind of how repetitive the nights get later on. I know, like, it's FNAF, the nights are repetitive, that's just how it works. But what I mean is, more specifically, the night 6, where you're going up against the 4 animatronics, and then Fredbear shows up at 4 a.m. And then Nightmare Night, where it's just basically the same thing, except Nightmare just happens to be there instead. Like, Nightmare is kind of set up as this, like, creepy, he's the the shadows, like he's like this kind of shadowy villain, and then he shows up for like 2 hours and he calls it a day. And it's like, what, maybe we could have had him here a little bit more. And this sort of ties into the other thing that I think I'm not the biggest fan of, and that's just Nightmare as a whole. I think it's not bad, but he hardly shows up, and so having him be different and sort of changing his Nightmare Night to be more different, I think is going to be helpful in distinguishing him as a separate villain from Fredbear, because so often he just gets lumped in with Fredbear, and I think kind of distinguishing that and making the later nights a little bit more different and a little bit more unique, almost sort of like challenge nights, would add to you beat the first 5 nights, and then you get in the night 6, 7, 8, and it's distinctive, more unique, and there's more going on than just the same thing over and over and over again. So that's kind of the last like nightmare mixed with repetitive-ish stuff, and that's kind of the last things that I wasn't the biggest fan of in FNAF 4. So on the whole, honestly, there really wasn't that much that I didn't like from the game. Usually when I'm doing a rewrite, there's like a ton of things that I don't like. I'm like, oh man, I can't stand this. Oh, this part really sucks. But I just didn't really have that with this game because I love FNAF 4. So it's like I don't have anything that I like strongly hate. But that's about it for the things I liked and I didn't like, and our kind of general, I guess, kind of a recap of FNAF 4-ish. And so moving into a couple general changes before we actually, start with the gameplay. The first thing would be a change to the room, the bedroom. I almost called it the office. It's not, it's the bedroom. And it would just be a small change. Like in Help Wanted Curse of Dreadbear, when you go down the creepy hallway and all the nightmare animatronics are attacking you, you get to the end, and then you go into the FNAF 4 bedroom, and they have the plushies of each animatronic at their corresponding door and like attacking position. I would have that here because you have Freddy on the bed, and then you have Foxy ends up kind of in the closet. Like when you defeat him enough, he turns back into the plushie. And then what I would add is Bonnie by the left door and Chica by the right door, but it would be the plushie versions. And that way it just sort of adds to like, is this a nightmare? Is this a dream? Like, is this real? Like, it sort of adds to, I think, that sort of element where these things are just kind of dreams and nightmares. I just think it'd be kind of fun too. It kind of gives you a hint of like where they're going to be attacking from. So obviously later nights when these animatronics don't show up, the plushies wouldn't be there, but I just thought it'd be kind of a fun small addition to the room. Another change, which would be a little bit of a larger change, would be adding more animations. So when you look at FNAF, the first 3 FNAF games, FNAF 1, the animation is, there's really not much, but you have Foxy running down the hallway. And that's kind of like the big thing. FNAF 2, I don't really think there's anything in FNAF 2 animation-wise, at least not that I remember. If there is, let me know, but I just don't really remember much. But then in FNAF 3, you have a bit more. You have Springtrap moves behind one of the walls when he's like peering through the office doorway. Then you see him and he like hides behind one of the walls. He runs past your office. He runs past you in the office. So he's moving a lot more and there's a lot more animations. And so I kind of want to build off of that. Obviously, I can't animate anything, but I would want to build up off of that and add more animations into the gameplay just to make things feel, I don't know, more creepy, because those old like Click Team animations from like the early FNAF days are just really like kind of creepy to me. So I think it'd be really fun to add more of those in here. So that's another larger change-ish. And for the last kind of general change before we get into the nights, I didn't honestly know where to put this, and especially because there really isn't much I'm changing with this. But the Fun with Plush Trap section is going to remain pretty much the exact same because I honestly don't really care much for it. So it's going to just kind of remain the exact same. I didn't want to get rid of it. But the one kind of small change I would do is he would make more like kind of creepy, disturbing noises and almost have a few like voice lines akin to like Balloon Boy from FNAF 2, where he'll like have a couple voice lines and he'll kind of like laugh. And so it's like, ooh, there's like somebody talking here. The other animatronics don't do that. So I kind of would want that for Plush Trap. Like he's just kind of more creepy in that aspect. So that would be the only change I would do to the Plush Trap section. And for that, that's about it for the recap and rolls on the whole. I don't have really anything else to, talk about for this. So instead of wasting you guys' time, I'm just going to get right into the night by night gameplay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through night 1, 2, 3, all the way through to night 9, because there are 9 nights in my rewrite. And so we'll just kind of go through all those, and then after that, we'll go through the story section, and that will be it for the video. So without further ado, let's get into the night by night gameplay. Alright, so for night 1 here, since it's kind of like the base night, I'm going to talk about sort of the basic night by night gameplay kind of a thing here, since most of the animatronics are here on night 1. So we'll talk about Bonnie, Chica, and the Frettles, and then we'll move on to like night 2, 3, and go through each of the additional animatronics that'll get added in as we go. So on night 1, base gameplay, you got Bonnie, you got Chica, you got the Frettles. Those are who you're going up against. So Bonnie and Chica act pretty much the exact same as they do in the base game. Bonnie goes down the left hallway, Chica goes down the right hallway. Chica can also spend some time in the kitchen. Like, they all kind of just act the exact same. You go to your door, you hear breathing, you close the door. That's how it works. But there is one difference that I think kind of will help mix things in a little bit better, add a little bit of spice, I guess you could say, to the game. So you go in the cupboard, you find the right spice, you add it to the game. That's kind of what we're looking at here. And that is by having there be a sort of middle ground phase between them at the end of the hallway and them in front of your door. Because when you look at the map of the FNAF 4 like movement locations, you know, there's like the map where the animatronics can move to, there's a middle of the hallway one. And I think that is where you shine the flashlight and then they hide behind the wall. But it doesn't make much sense for them to be in the middle of the hallway for that to happen. So I'm adding in a middle hallway, I guess, spot. So when you peer out, if they're at the end of the hallway, you'll see them at the end of the hallway and then they'll hide. If they're at your door, you turn your flashlight on, you get jump scared. If they're in the middle of the hallway, you'll peek out, turn the flashlight on, and you'll see them standing in the middle of the hallway, like kind of on their way towards you. Like mid-step, they freeze as you turn the flashlight on. And they act a little bit different. I wanted to add some spice so that they're not just the exact same animatronic, but on a different side. So Bonnie, if you spot him in the middle of the hallway, you have to close your door as soon as possible because he will start walking towards you. An animation will begin playing where he'll start moving towards you, and you gotta close the door as quick as you can. Otherwise, you know, he'll jump scare you. So you close the door, you wait a little bit till you hear footsteps leaving, and then you can open the door, and you're good. So that's just Bonnie's little bit of spice. Chica is a little bit different. If you shine the flashlight on her, you have to like kind of flicker it, so turn it on and off, in order for her to kind of just bugger off. She'll stand there, you flicker it a few times, and she'll leave. And that kind of ties into how I have Chica act in a lot of my different rewrites, where you flicker the flashlight and she'll kind of just leave. So it's just sort of a more continuation of how Chica behaves in my rewritten universe. And I just think, on the whole, it adds a little bit of more fun to looking out in the hallway, because sometimes you might see it, and then it adds a little bit more fun instead of just, oh, they go around the corner, or, oh, you get jump scared. So I just was trying to come up with something that would be a little bit more unique for their hallway movements. And as for the Frettles, which are the last kind of main basic enemy that are going to be there on all these kind of basic nights, they act very similar to they do in the base game. You know, they spawn 3 Frettles, they kind of screech, they can, you know, do that kind of stuff. But they flicker and they mess with the lights. So your flashlight will kind of flicker on and off the more Frettles that spawn. And when all 3 Frettles spawn, your flashlight, like after a little bit of time after they're there, they will disable your flashlight like Balloon Boy. Now, the Frettles don't jump scare you, so there's not like a Frettles jump scare, but they will disable your flashlight, and then you can't use it in the hallways, you can't do it with that kind of stuff, which isn't the end of the world for night 1, seeing as you can just wait for Bonnie or Chica to be at the door, wait for breathing, and then close the door. So it's not the end of the world if you have your flashlight disabled for night 1. However, on night 2, you have to deal with the monster under your bed. So night 2 here has you deal with the monster under your bed, or Freddy himself. And this is where some more unique, distinctive gameplay comes into play. So typically, the Frettles are attached to Freddy. The more Frettles there are, the more Freddy gets angry. Eventually, he'll jump scare you. But that is different for this, because Freddy is no longer attached to the Frettles. They are 2 separate entities. So the Frettles will disable your flashlight, but Freddy acts differently. He's hiding under your bed, and that will be a whole new section where you have to look. So you'd be able to kind of look down under the bed when you're looking at it, and Freddy will be down there, and he'll have 3 movement stages. Stage 1, he'll be at the way back of the bed. It'll be super dark and shadowy back there, and you'll basically just see his eyes peering out of the darkness. He's just kind of there. That's his basic standard stage. It's just stage 1. Stage 2 will have him be kind of reaching out of the darkness. He's like halfway under the bed, like crawling towards you, arms kind of reaching out, and you get to see part of his face, and he's kind of just emerging from the darkness, and he's trying to get you. Stage 3 will be like right in front of your face. When you look under the bed, he'll be like right there, and he'll like be on the verge of attacking you. And so how to get rid of him, you just hold the flashlight on to keep him at bay, and to kind of, you know, move down his stages of attack and reduce his attack timer and stuff like that. So he's pretty easy to deal with, but you'll see why then the Freddles kind of do still work with Freddy, because if they disable your flashlight, you can't get rid of him, you're gonna die. And it also, while seemingly very simple, you know, you turn the flashlight on, you move him back, and you call it a day. When mixed with all the other gameplay, because you still have the Freddles, you still have Bonnie and Chica, and then later on you'll have more animatronics, there's so much to deal with that, like, taking the time to have to push Freddy back with a flashlight could be crucial in using that time to do something else. So it just adds to the chaos and adds more to do. And so that's kind of Freddy in night 2. That's really all that's new for this night. And so when we move on to the next night, we'll now have to deal with the monster in the closet. So Foxy's kind of like the new enemy for night 3. He's here and he is ready to attack. And he basically does the same thing he does in the base game, right? He makes his way into your room, into the closet. He'll have his different stages of attack. You got to push him back by closing the door, stuff like that. And so all of that is the same. However, I wanted to add a new hallway gimmick for him because Foxy likes to run. And so his new hallway gimmick is that if you spot him in the hallway, like how you can see him at the end of the hall and he'll kind of like hide around the corner, instead of like just that, you see him and he hides, if you see him, you need to close the door right away because he will charge down your hallway and try to attack you. And so you look down the hallway, you see him down there, and he'll begin running towards you. You close the door, he'll bang on it a few times, and then he'll kind of just bugger off. And I wanted to add something new and kind of like scary, because when you see Bonnie or Chica like that, they just hide. So I can imagine like Markiplier's playing this for the first time. He looks out there, he's already dealt with Bonnie and Chica and them, and he looks out there and he sees a different animatronic hide around the corner, and he's like, who the heck is that? And then Foxy comes barreling down the hallway, and Markiplier does his like, whoa, he like flies back in the chair, you know, the headphones go flying off. Like I can kind of just picture that happening. And I just kind of wanted something unique for Foxy that's not just he can hide in the closet and then that's about it. Like, it's about time for him to come out of the closet, so he needs to just do something else is kind of my thing. And with how many connections there are to FNAF 1 in this game, I just think it would make sense to have Foxy run down a hallway and bang on the door a few times, because that's also very FNAF 1. And so I just thought it'd be kind of fun and something else for Foxy to do, other than just kind of being annoying by just kind of sitting there. So I just thought it'd be something fun and something unique for Foxy. So that's really about it for night 3 and for Foxy. Nothing else really new. And along the same lines of nothing else really new, that's kind of the next night. So night 4 is just the same old night, just a little bit harder. There's nothing really new. There's nothing really unique. There's nothing different for night 4. Now, I do want to bring this up here since there's nothing different for FNAF 4, or not FNAF 4, with night 4. I just wanted to bring up a few kind of story elements that I'm not going to bring up later, because since the main story section is going to be more of the mini games, but I wanted to bring up some actual gameplay story stuff here, since I don't really know what else to talk about for this night. But what I have in mind is the first 4 nights take place at, like, Crying Child's alive. It's not in the hospital. He's alive and he has these nightmares in his home. That's kind of like a big thing that I wanted to do, is to have these nights actually happen. Like, these are nightmares that he's having in his home. So the first 4 nights are that. He's having these nightmares. He's having to deal with these things. He's scared. He's, it's scary. I hate the animatronics. He's having these nightmares in real life. But all of that changes when we get into the next night. So night 5 takes place after Crying Child gets chomped by Fredbear, and that's when night 5 takes place. He is now in the hospital and he's having these continuous nightmares. And so things start to get a little bit different. The room itself, the little plushies like the Bonnie, Chica, Freddy plush, they aren't there anymore. The room is kind of more empty and it's kind of quieter. There's not like the barking or the extra ambience noises. It's just kind of quiet, and all you're dealing with is Fredbear. You'll hear him running around, you'll hear him laughing. It's kind of just like night 5, but things are starting to seem a little bit more off. It's kind of eerie, it's kind of quiet. It's like something's not quite right. But Fredbear himself kind of plays very similar to what he does in the base game. He plays very similar to that. He's running around, he's laughing, he can hide in the closet, he can hide on the bed, he can also hide under the bed, like he does, or part of like the new gameplay gimmick. He can hide under the bed. So there's more places that you have to look for him, and he kind of just moves around a little bit quicker since Nightmare is going to be a lot different. He's still here. He's going to be a lot different though. I kind of wanted to take some of his aspects and give him the Fredbear. So Fredbear moves around a lot quicker. He's a lot more difficult to deal with. I'm going to be honest, when I played base game night 5 in FNAF 4, it was easier than the other nights. I had a lot more fun with it too. So I think making it a little bit more difficult, since it's kind of the finale night, quote unquote, it's, night 5. I think that would help sort of make things a little bit more difficult by having him be faster and harder to deal with. But that's really about it for night 5. Not much else there, but this is in the head of Crying Child as he's dying after he got chomped. And that same thing can be said for the next night. Night 6 also takes place as Crying Child is dying. He's in the hospital. Things are more eerie. Things are more quiet. But this time, you're dealing with the big 5 all at the same time. Instead of it being, 12 to 4 a.m. or whatever, where you deal with the 4 animatronics, and then Fredbear shows up at 4, and he's kind of just chilling for a little bit, and then you can just go home. Here, all of them are there at the same time. Now, how does Fredbear work with that mechanic? There would be some click team programming that would allow Fredbear to kind of work around the other animatronics and not overwrite them. There'd probably be a lot of programming there that would need to make sure that things don't break, since all of them are there at the same time. But it would give some, distinctiveness and stuff to night 6, instead of it just being the previous 2 nights, or like the previous, 5 nights, I guess, but kind of like just chopped up, and you don't have to deal with everybody at the same time. You have to deal with all 5 at the same time. Just makes it a lot more difficult, a lot harder, but that's kind of the point, since it is night 6. Now, to do some more story points, since, there's not really a lot else to talk about, some story points with night 6 is that this is the last night of Crying Child in the hospital. You'd get the little, cutscene, and then eventually you'd hear the hospital flatline noise. So Crying Child dies, and so this is the last night that he is alive and having these nightmares. But just because he dies, it doesn't mean that the nightmares are over. Alright, so night 7 in the base game is Nightmare Night. So you go and it's basically the same thing as night 6, right? Except Nightmare's there. But this night 7, I want it to be different. I want it to be distinctive. I want it to be unique. I want it to be something new. So now that Crying Child has passed on, he finds himself in sort of, I guess, a limbo between life and death. That's what the gameplay shows. And what better way to show that than by using Nightmarion, which is commonly associated with just death itself in the FNAF universe. So Night 7 is Nightmarion Night. He's here, and he is one of the hardest challenges of the game. So he acts in some ways very similar to Nightmare. Nightmarion can go through the hallways and can show up on the bed, quote unquote, but I want to use that teaser image of him standing behind the bed, you know, like the Nightmarion teaser image. So that's where he would be. Instead of it just being like Nightmarion's on the bed, he's like behind the bed thing. I actually don't know if that's how he works in the game. I've never experienced a Nightmarion in the game, so maybe that's how it works, but that's where I would have him be. He'd be behind the bed, but he also can go through the hallways. And another little bit of a challenge for him, unlike Nightmare and Fredbear, where you can hear their little pitter-patters. I don't know if you can hear Nightmare walking, but you can hear like pitter-patters moving around. Nightmarion makes no noise because the puppet sometimes floats around. So for mine, Nightmarion kind of floats around, and you can't hear where they're moving. So you kind of just have to guess. You got to go to each door, make sure you're on top of things. When they do move to behind the bed, so when Nightmarion moves behind the bed, they would make some noise. I don't know if it'd be a laugh or something, but they would make a noise to indicate that they've moved, just like how Fredbear laughs to indicate that he's moving. So that's how Nightmarion's kind of basic gameplay works. Again, very similar to Nightmare or Fredbear, but just like a little bit different and a lot harder. Like they'd be moving around a lot faster, stuff like that. So it's a little bit more difficult and stuff like that. But that's not the only thing that's, you know, different here. With a little bit of inspiration from Help Wanted, which I know is a game that came out way after this one, but I think can work here. In the closet and under the bed, instead of having Nightmarion show up there, I'm having it be that their little wiggly fingers show up in those spots instead. And you have to go there and you have to keep them at bay. So just like how Foxy and Freddy have different stages of attack, you have to keep the little wiggly finger Nightmarion stuff away and like move them back several stages in order to make sure that they don't jump scare you. Because if you leave them for too long, then you'll get jump scared by Nightmarion. So you have a few different things that you need to worry about. So it can get very hectic, it can get very chaotic. And another thing is that the room is super dark now. Like it's been getting progressively darker. You know, Night 5 was a little bit, Night 6 is more. Night 7 is like really dark. Then it's kind of hard to see a lot of things. So there's a lot going against you, and it is a very difficult night. Also, some like ambient stuff, there's not a lot of noise, like it's pretty dead quiet, but there would be a kind of soft music box, not the same as FNAF 2, but my grandfather clock kind of a music box would be playing in the background because it's the puppet, you know, and it's the puppet song, so that's why it'd be playing here. So just a lot different than you would typically think of for a Night 7. I just want it to be something distinctive and something unique. And keeping along that same track of distinctive and unique, moving on to the next night here is something completely wild, completely out there, and never seen in this game before. Night 8 is probably the most distinctive and the most unique night in the entire rewrite that I have here. This night is kind of where Nightmare shows up, because I didn't want to completely get rid of Nightmare. You know, as much as I'm not a big Nightmare fan, I couldn't get rid of him. In my heart of hearts, I couldn't boot him out of the game. You guys already know, even when there's characters that I don't think work with the story that I'm writing, I still keep them in there. For example, Lefty in my Pizza Sim rewrite, I had to keep him there even though I replaced him with the regular puppet. So I like to still include some of these characters because I know that some of them are like fan favorites. So Nightmare is still here, but he is a little bit different. In order to stay here, he had to go over, like, I guess, go through a cosmetic change, if you will. So when you look at Nightmare, what is sort of like the first animatronic that you can kind of see very much like there's some similarities between? I would say Shadow Freddy. So this night is the Shadows night. You're going up against Nightmare and you're going up against his companion, but they very much have the features of the Shadow animatronics.
So Nightmare, while still having the same sort of body shape and size as Fredbear, would have the glowing eyes and teeth like Shadow Freddy and be almost at a completely black silhouette. So he looks like Shadow Freddy, or like a Nightmare version of Shadow Freddy. And he's accompanied by a Nightmare version of Shadow Bonnie, but he would look like Spring Bonnie. So he's looks like Spring Bonnie, but like a Nightmare version of him. But he's got the Shadow Bonnie features of the, glowing white eyes and the glowing teeth. So you have two Shadow animatronics you're going up against. And this, I imagine, is sort of like the last... I'm trying to think exactly how to word it, but since Night 7 is sort of like a little bit of the purgatory, I imagine this is even more so. Like, Crying Child's on the verge of just being gone from existence. And so that's kind of what this night is. It's dark, there's no color, it's all like grayscale, and it's like the darkest night. And so when you look in the hallway, you can barely see anything, and then that's kind of why the glowing eyes and teeth really work, so that you can actually kind of see where they are. So it's a very dark night, and it's very different from what we typically see in FNAF 4. So that's really about it for the, Night 8 and the Shadows Night and all that kind of stuff. Why are the Shadow animatronics here? I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I just thought it was kind of cool. So that's why they're here. I don't have any like ulterior motive or any like distinctive reason why they're here. I just thought it'd be kind of cool. So that's it for Night 8. And as we kind of near the end of things here, we'll move into our final night of the game, Night 9, or the Custom Night. So there's not really much to talk about here with the Custom Night. It's just a custom night. Now, the two characters that wouldn't appear on here are the Shadow animatronics, because they don't really work with the other animatronics, but you can have everybody else here. So there would be the 4 typical animatronics, Fredbear, and then Nightmare can all spawn in here. Now, it would be a very hectic and a very chaotic night, and so I imagine there would have to be a lot of programming to ensure that stuff like Nightmario's wiggly fingers couldn't spawn in and interrupt with like Fredbear stuff. So there would be a lot of like overlap and a lot of stuff where like programming and some gameplay changes would have to be made in order to make sure everybody could, mend well together, like actually work in the same night. But I just thought it'd be fun to have a custom night that would include pretty much all the characters, so that if you wanted to, you could kind of go back and recreate the previous nights without having to actually just replay the game to do that. So that's kind of why it's here. There's not really anything else here. I don't have any really story reason or purpose as to why, it's here. I just thought it would be fun to have a custom night, and that's really about it. I don't have anything else to say about this or the gameplay story or anything like that. So since that's it for the night by night gameplay, I think it's time to move into the kind of mini game story that we have going on here. Alright, so for the story in the mini games of FNAF 4, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, there's really, again, not much that I'd really want to change. Just a few small things that I'm kind of shifting or tweaking or stuff like that that would just kind of work better for the narrative that I'm going with. The first major change would be in the mini games themselves. Well, everything's in the mini games since that's where the story's told, but the layout of the mini games, and that would be Crying Child's bedroom. In my rewrite, the bedroom would look like the FNAF 4 bedroom. So the one that you actually play the nights in, that's Crying Child's bedroom. So it would have the 2 doors, the 2 hallways, lead around, that kind of stuff. That's what the mini game would look like. So the layout of the house and the layout of his bedroom is different so that it matches with the FNAF 4 house and bedroom. Now, that does bring up the idea of the whole experiment room and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to talk about that here because that is a whole nother can of worms that I just don't want to have to deal with. But to solidify my rewrite universe, the experiment rooms are not a thing. So this is just his bedroom. I just want to say that plain and clear for this. So it would just be a way to kind of further connect Crying Child as the main character of my, rewritten FNAF 4. It's not Michael for mine. Obviously, it's Crying Child, and this is just another way to connect it even more. But that's probably the biggest change for the actual,
mini game settings and layout, aside from that, everything is pretty close to the same. Some other smaller changes that are to do with the story a little bit more. I would have Michael named directly by Crying Child, not like, hey, Michael Afton, but like the ending cutscene when the 4 bullies are there and they're like, oh, we think Crying Child wants to give Fredbear a kiss. They'd pick him up and they start dragging him over, and Crying Child's obviously like resisting, and he's like, put me down, let me go, right? But he would say like, Michael, let me go, or something like that. So he would name Michael by, you know, like, he would just name Michael. And that way it sort of sets up a stronger connection when Michael's name gets brought up in the other future games, and just has another stronger connection there. So that would just be another small change. It's not anything crazy. The other kind of smaller change is there's the one girl that kind of looks like Circus Baby Elizabeth-ish. Well, I would change her to look a little bit more like Elizabeth. Not exactly the same as we see her in the sister location mini games, but she would look more similar than she does here in FNAF 4, just to kind of give another stronger connection. And she would probably have a little bit more unique lines. I don't think she would be like, yo, what's up, bro? Like, I don't think she would like solidify that they're related, but there would be slightly different dialogue between her and Crying Child, just to make it seem like they do know each other more. I just think then it kind of builds up and sets up future games without actually directly setting up the future game, if that makes sense, since FNAF 4 was the final chapter, and that's kind of what I'm working with here. So that would kind of just be another smaller change. Now, the largest change to kind of the story and the implications of the mini games is actually to do with Crying Child and Psychic Friend Fredbear. Now, the biggest, I don't know if it's mystery or what, but the biggest kind of confusing thing about the mini games is that Psychic Friend Fredbear is literally everywhere, right? He's in every single one of the mini game shots, I think, except for maybe the parts and service room, but even then I don't remember. But he's in pretty much every single minigame shot, and he's just kind of following Crying Child around. Now, the idea that people have is that, like, he is just everywhere, or it's like William Afton's security system, or something like that. I wanted to go for more of a almost traumatic kind of a thing. I don't know how else to word it, but I wanted to go for it being more of like, Crying Child has some sort of like issue, like attachment issue to Psychic Friend Fredbear, and so he sees him everywhere, but he isn't actually there. And there would be implications of this in the mini games through some of the dialogue. People would make fun of him for having his imaginary friend, Psychic Friend Fredbear, and stuff like that. They won't actually, call him that, but they'd make fun of him for having this imaginary friend because Crying Child sees him everywhere, but he isn't there. And the idea behind this is that Crying Child kind of confides in Psychic Friend Fredbear. He's his only friend. They have a strong connection and bond, and so there's a stronger connection there, and Crying Child has an attachment issue to it, and so he just sees him everywhere, right? He goes around, he's stuck at the pizzeria, he's walking home, and he just sees him everywhere so that he has somebody to talk to. He's an imaginary friend of sorts. And I don't know if this would be some sort of mental issue or what. I don't know. I'm not like a doctor or a psychiatrist. I don't know how any of this works. But there'd be just some sort of implication that he is imagining all these things. So there's not a William Afton security system. Psychic Friend Fredbear isn't actually moving around. It's just all in the head of Crying Child, which would also support the fact that he's having these nightmares, and sort of just tie in that Crying Child's kind of been tormented, and he's kind of, got a lot of trauma and stuff like that. So he's, dealing with it in his own way by having Psychic Friend Fredbear be his imaginary friend. I just think it would kind of set up FNAF 4 as a more tragic story, which it already is a very tragic story, but I kind of want to set it up a little bit more. But also, it sets up Crying Child and Psychic Friend Fredbear having a stronger kind of bond, a stronger connection, which would then set up in my later rewrite videos as they're the one and the same. So in my later rewrite videos, Crying Child becomes Psychic Friend Fredbear, like he goes on to possess it. So this would kind of set that up a little bit more by having them have a stronger bond and connection. But aside from that,
there's really not anything else that I changed. I love the story of FNAF 4. It's a very tragic one. So all of that stays the same. Like, he goes through each mini game and he's getting tormented by Michael, right? He's scared of the animatronics. He's scared of the pizzeria. Like, he's got all these things, and all of that's the exact same. You know, the whole, oh, let's get him up the Fredbear. Oh, they put him in the, oh, he's dead. Is that the bite of 87? Right? Like, all that's all the exact same. However, there is one other change that I made to one of the ending cutscenes. So, you know, the one that is like, I think at the end of night 6, and they're in the void, and it's the one where Psychic Friend Fredbear is like, I will put you back together. We're still your friends. You know, that one where everybody's like fading off into the darkness. I did make a change to that one. Alright, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a decent amount of work. You know, I think it's the smallest rewrite that I've done. I'm actually recording this outro before I've recorded everything else, so I don't know. But I think it was the smallest one I've done, and even with that, though, it was still a lot of work. It was still a big project, and I just hope that it turned out, you know, well enough for you guys. Now, I'd like to give a few shout-outs. I already gave one out to Luke, but I want to give another one. Thanks for the opening scene, and just, you know, thanks for being very supportive of the channel. I just, you know, really do appreciate it, and I just thought I'd give you one more shout-out, because I usually give shout-outs at the end of the video anyway. So I just want to give Luke another shout-out, and I'd also like to give a couple of shout-outs to the Baldwin Birds 2 and to Solid Silver for, you know, just kind of being helpful with the videos. I know I didn't have you guys do anything for this one, but you guys have done stuff for previous videos, and you are very supportive of me and the work that I do, you know, with the channel. So I just wanted to give you guys some shout outs as well. And yeah, with that, we're just going to kind of round things off there. So we'll do our shameless plugs like we always do. Go check them out. The description has the Instagram, Patreon, second channel, that kind of stuff. But channel membership button thing, it's also down there next to the subscribe button or whatever. So go check out all of that stuff, especially the channel member stuff, because it's just a fun way to kind of support me. I don't really need much support, but it's just sort of a fun way to have you guys, you know, support the channel, that kind of stuff. But you get some fun perks with it. You know, there's some small things. I'm trying to work on some better stuff, some better perks and all that kind of stuff. But you get some emojis, some 8-bit emojis made by yours truly. So that's one of the perks. And the kind of more major perk is a shout out in pretty much every video that I do. So with that, here is the shout out to my current channel members. Thank you guys oh so very much for being my members. It really does just mean the world to me. So thank you very much. And here is your video shout out. And yeah, with that, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video. And for your questions of the day, question number 1, what did you think of the rewrite? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think of the rewrite? So that's question number 1. Question number 2 is, what was the scariest nightmare, dream, whatever, that you've ever had in your entire life that you can remember? So answer both of those questions if you made it this far in the video. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.